All right, welcome back to Relationships Made Simple for Men with me, Bryce Bauer. It seemed like the last video and podcast on dating got some traction, so I want to follow up on what I said I'd follow up on, which is how to manage your first date and subsequent dates. Now, for most people, you probably got little to no guidance on how to enter into a romantic relationship, to assess the person you're talking to see if they're a good fit, to have good questions to ask that facilitate connection and understanding, and how to move forward with the process. Some of the most common pieces of advice are be yourself, ask questions, be a good listener. And those are great, but what about the details? What about if you start feeling anxious? What if you realize this person is not a good fit for you? What if you like them, but they're not really interested in you? What if they seem interested, but their behavior says otherwise? They take forever to respond or they're not available. What about your own boundaries? Are you okay with them having kids? What if you have kids? What if you don't have kids, but you want kids? What if you don't make a lot of money? What if you're estranged from your parents? What should you think if they have a crazy ex that's still trying to contact them? You see, all these things can happen and we don't get much guidance. We don't learn what to do in school. We don't learn what to do from our parents. Most people do not have a general knowledge base on how to deal with these situations and how to manage our own feelings and expectations in the process. So I know that's a lot of ground to cover, but I'm going to try to talk about as much as I can here. So whenever I'm thinking about problems, the first place to start is your mindset. And you want to get clear on what you really want here. If you're not really sure you want a long-term partnership, that's going to show up at some point. If you have some type of addiction or compulsive behavior or a mental health issue and it's not being treated in some way, that's going to pop up too. So what I'm saying is, you want to make sure that you're in a stable enough place in your life to where you can handle a relationship. Some people really think that if they get into a relationship, that will fix their problems, and it won't. Sometimes it will make them feel better for a short period of time, but it doesn't last. You have to get clear on what you're actually able to offer to a person and what you expect in return. I know it can be really seductive to hide your problems or pretend like you're just this go with the flow, super low maintenance guy because you want to present your best self, but that's not real. That's not how people work. We are all high maintenance. And if you haven't realized that, I want to challenge you to take that on and explore it. You do have struggles in your life somewhere. You do have a lot of needs. And so part of the mindset is coming in from this more informed perspective that you are complicated, other people are complicated, and this dance is difficult. I find that a lot of people come to me and they think that this should be easy. And maybe it was in the past when you were in high school or college and you were around single people your age all the time. There's research that shows that the greatest indicator of relationships forming is just proximity, just being around people. But as you get older and you have more responsibilities and you are wiser, it becomes harder to see how two lives can combine. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you really need to take it seriously. You need to be working on yourself as an individual. You need to be putting forth a lot of effort to find the right person. And you don't want to get down on yourself or feel too disappointed if it takes time, because it probably will. And instead of going into every first date as if this is some make or break moment in your life, I suggest you focus on being present so that you can actually show this person who you are and connect with them, to look at it as an experiment to learn more about yourself and to have fun. You at least want to come away from this feeling good about how you showed up and knowing that you tried to make this a good experience for both you and the other person. That's the mindset you want to have. So let's talk about the first date. Again, like I said in my last video, I think it's best for men to set up a first meeting in a public place that's low stakes, like a coffee shop. Doing something like coffee is also a way in which you can sit and face each other and really connect. I think about a first date in which maybe you'd go bowling. It's like every 30 seconds, someone has to get up and bowl and then switch. And it's going to be much harder to hold a conversation. The focus should be on being able to talk to each other and not the activity. And I'm not saying this is a hard and fast rule. For instance, if you both like playing pickleball. Maybe you show up, chat for a minute, play the game, and then there's space to chat afterwards. There's different ways this can work, but you want to make sure that there is space for you two to connect. Now, as far as that initial moment of coming up in person to meet someone, there's a few things that you should know. One is that everybody is anxious. It's not just you, and that it's okay to feel anxious. It's possible that it might feel a bit awkward. You're taking in a lot of information all at once. What does this person look like? What's their energy like? Do they seem happy? Do they seem distant? Do they seem frozen? Is their attention somewhere else? There's a lot to take in all at once. Meanwhile, you have all this stuff happening in your head. Does this shirt look good on me? What are her initial thoughts about me? Am I acting weird? All that is going on. So given that reality, what I'd suggest you do is prior to walking up, and even as you're walking up and greeting each other, I'd focus on your breath. Slow your breathing down, slow your heart rate down as much as you can. This will help you get more into your prefrontal cortex where you can think more clearly, and it will also help them feel more relaxed with you. I don't know if it matters that much whether or not you give a handshake or a hug. I think kind of a close handshake for the initial meeting is probably a safe bet. And having a really simple greeting in the chamber, something like, "Hey, I'm Bryce. Thanks for meeting up." And maintaining eye contact. You may also want to throw out a compliment. "I like how you did your hair," or "Your shirt matches your eyes." Just expressing some warmth. And from there, there's a lot of different directions this could go, depending on what you're doing and depending on what she says. And after you get your coffee and sit down, or you have that chance to start the bigger conversation, I really like the idea of setting up the space with intention. So it could sound like, "Yeah, I'm really interested to get to know you more. What does your life look like right now? Work, fun, family, travel," and then open yourself up to listen. I would suggest throwing in some reflective listening at times. It could sound like, "Okay, so you're a nurse and you have a dog that you take on walks and you have a brother that you're close to. What's it like being a nurse?" I like these more open-ended questions, not yes or no's, because it gives other people the space to give more color and more detail. And for me, even though I'm not dating, I do this with meeting new people. The question, "What's that like?" is a really easy one. What's that like having kids that are about to graduate high school? What was that like going through divorce? Oh, what was it like growing up there? Those are just really easy softball questions. And hopefully they are going to ask you questions too. And I want to go back to the mindset that you want to stay relaxed, have a good time, and not try too hard. I suggest throwing some vulnerability in there without complaining. Something like, "Yeah, I started a business a few years ago and I've really enjoyed it because I have the ability to do what I want to do, but it can be stressful trying to find work and all the responsibility is just on me." Or, "I went through a breakup a couple of years ago and it really rocked me. I was really sad for a couple of months, and that's when I put a lot of time into going to the gym and spend time with my friends or family," stuff like that. I would also suggest asking a presence-based question, something like, "How is that to share that with me?" If it's something vulnerable, what's it like for you to meet up with someone that you don't even know, like me? And I know that for some of you, this might sound contrived, but conversation is really an art. It's the art of energy, face and body expression, feelings. All of this is going on, even if we're talking about content. What do you do for work? What do you like to do for fun? We're always reading each other. And if you're wondering where that anxiety comes from, I'll let you know that there is a little part of our brain that is always on high alert. It's pinging. Is this person safe? Do they like me? Do they feel safe with me? Am I scaring them? Am I annoying them? Do they find me attractive? That's just the way that we're wired because of how we attach to each other and look for security with other people. So you're not going to turn that off completely, but you can learn how to manage it. Some people just really like connecting with anyone, even if there's not a romantic interest. For some people, like myself, there can be social anxiety there, and everyone has their own tolerance. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour, and it's okay for that to come up and you feel like you want some space. Again, just try to stay present to whatever's happening. This is an experiment. It shouldn't feel like torture. You don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. And at some point, you guys are going to part ways and you'll see what happens. And personally, for me, I would always tell dates up front that I just have an hour because that's kind of my tolerance. If I'm having trouble connecting with someone, I can stay interested in them for a while, but eventually I want to leave. And you can do this or not. But at some point, someone's going to say, oh, I have to go. And this is another transition that can bring up feelings. Some people really want to know if the other person wants to go on a second date, or maybe you know that you don't. So I don't think there's a right way to do this. I would never set up second dates on the first date because I needed time to process the experience that I had with this person. And I also wanted them to have time to process the experience. So I'd always say, oh, it's nice getting to hang out with you today. I'm going to head back to the house and get ready to go to the gym or whatever. Now, if you're feeling good vibes and you feel pretty confident that this person wants to see you again, I think it's perfectly fine to ask, hey, would you want to meet up again and do lunch? Now, if they say yes, I'd still take that with a grain of salt because it can be really hard for people to say no in this situation. Sometimes people will say yes, but then they'll ghost you or just become pretty unavailable. I highly suggest not trying to chase someone around for a second date. If someone really wants to meet up with you again, they'll make space in their life, unless they have something going on, like they're out of town. But if you think about it, if they're like, oh, I can maybe meet up in 3 weeks, that just shows you how much space they have in their life for a relationship, or it shows you their level of interest in you, which probably isn't very high. So I'd look at this as a yellow flag, slow your roll. It's okay if you put the ball in their court and say, okay, well, let me know when you're available, and then let it be. If they don't respond, I'd let them go. I wouldn't do too much back and forth trying to work things out for weeks or months at a time. Ideally, you'd want to be able to meet up at least once a week to see if you can build a relationship over the next couple of months. And if you do like I do and you don't set up the second date on the first date, but you know that you want to, I'd suggest responding the next day, hey, I had a really good time. Would you want to meet up again? That's me. I like to keep it simple. Being the man, I think it's good to provide options. Yeah, we could go to lunch. We could go on a walk. We could do coffee again. I still probably wouldn't invite her over to your house alone. It's common for women to have had bad experiences with that, either really bad experiences or just kind of weird, awkward experiences. You know, the whole Netflix and chill thing. But either way, if you have a good experience on your first date and she agrees to a second date, good job. You're doing it. You're doing this dating thing. And I would treat the second date and the third date in a much similar way. It's still an experiment. You're trying to get to know them. If you feel head over heels in love with them and you think you're going to marry them after 2 hangouts, I'd pump the brakes. You do not know this person yet. It's normal to feel excited, but you don't want to go planning your whole life with them. There's more research to do. And really, I think for all couples, where the rubber really hits the road is when there is conflict. What happens when you disagree about something? A philosophy or politics or religion, or what constitutes a good life, or when one of you does something that the other doesn't like? How do you manage that? That's really the moment and the time in which people find out if they can do the relational dance long term. Because if you can, and you can come out the other side with more understanding and feeling closer to each other, that's what builds security and connection. And if you can't, and one or both of you isn't willing to get some type of support for that individually and or together, those are where relationships will typically collapse. And in my experience, the honeymoon phase typically lasts anywhere from a few months up to a couple of years. There might not be conflict. Sometimes it's just luck. You guys are both easygoing. You don't disagree on much, but at some point it's going to happen. And some people never really get to enjoy the honeymoon phase. They just launch into conflict from the beginning. But no matter where you hit that intersection, it's important that you keep getting informed, keep growing and learning, and get support when you need it. It's never too early to get support. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. If you're out there dating, I wish you the best. Make sure to like, subscribe, or follow if you like what I have to say. And you can find more information on how to work with me at www.brycebauer.com. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.